Hey there, welcome to episode 96 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. Today is Friday, December 27, 2024. The time is approximately 11:50 a.m., just before noon on this final Friday of the year 2024. Time is flying. I'm just getting over a cold. Hopefully today's episode will sound okay. So I'll apologize now. To me, mostly. Episode 96 already. Coming up on triple digits. Today's episode is about the pivot. I was going to say pivots on pivots, but I'll keep it short. Pivot. This is about if you're pursuing a startup idea, an entrepreneurial endeavor, sometimes you got to make a detour. The Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program is about the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem of the Greater Vegas area, although we don't have to limit it to that geographical area. The name, Cafe Genius Impresarios, inspired by Cafe Centro, a coffee shop in the San Francisco Bay Area in the South Park, which is very near the AT&T baseball stadium. I have not checked. I think it's still the AT&T baseball stadium. I haven't even thought about San Francisco much in quite a while. Cafe Centro was where startups start. It was a quaint little just a simple little coffee shop. It's where Jack Dorsey was working on Twitter. I'm not a huge fan of Jack Dorsey, nor of Twitter, but it's probably one of the more noteworthy startup stories that essentially got it started, Cafe Centro. Cafe Centro is spelled with two F's, just like Cafe Genius. The genius is from the Genius Lunches, which we used to have here in the Vegas area during the downtown project days. People that were working on startups or doing interesting things, we would just get a random group of people together and talk about what was going on, a little catch-up session. Not really gossip, a little bit of gossip. But what are you working on? How are things? What's the latest? The Genius Lunch. I needed a name for the projects that I was assembling 2 years ago regarding a pitch workout room, pitch mingle, Genius roundtable for recruiting entrepreneurs on the ground here in our ecosystem to become subject matter experts on what works and what doesn't in our ecosystem. So yeah, Genius, Cafe Centro, Genius Lunch, and then impresarios are people doing cool things, often entrepreneurial, hopefully innovative. Thus, Cafe Genius Impresarios. If you have located this audio program somewhere that offers you as well the episode description, which hopefully it does, you will find the show notes for today's episode, which contain a summary, which I will read to you, and some links. 2 of them are the shameless self-promotion links for your host, and 2 are relevant for today's episode. So let's get on with it, shall we? We're in the middle of holidays. Who's listening to audio programs such as this? Well, who knows? The summary is this. Have you ever had an idea for a startup or a new entrepreneurial endeavor of some kind, and somewhere along the way, you or someone who has invested in you decides you need to change up your game? Have you ever had to pivot? The first 2 links, as I said, you may have heard before, or if this is your first time, I'll say you do not have to spend any money at these. Despite the name of the first one, it's buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. That's DANHUGO. There you will find my profile page on which are links to all of my audio programs, various GitHub projects, a little bit of background information about me, and even a few of my favorite coffee beans, which I actually grind myself to make coffee. Right at the top of that profile page, you will find a link to the posts section. I might start adding a separate link for the post section here in the audio program links sections. We'll see. I don't want to turn into a self-promotion fest 100%, but that posts link will take you to the place where we can post audio natively on buymeacoffee.com. There you will find the Buy Me an Update micro episodes, which I launch on Monday mornings. I think this upcoming final episode for 2024 will be episode 6 of the Buy Me an Update micro update program. I talk about what happened last week in the audio program space for myself and some stuff upcoming. It's a place to kind of unify announcements across all of my stuff. It's an experiment, but it's 5 minutes, under 5 minutes. I think they end up being about 4 minutes. So how can you go wrong? Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo. That is where I do some textual updates. Ko-fi.com is a little bit different. They do enable audio linking, but I cannot link to buymeacoffee.com from Ko-fi.com. I don't know what they were thinking. How can you not allow connecting your competitor? If that's I don't know if they're really hard competitors, but either way, Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo. Once again, DANHUGO. And of course, buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo. Same deal. Listen to the micro updates. Let me know what you think. Micro episodes. Either one. An old Wharton podcast on pivots. This is the Wharton School of Business in Pennsylvania. Our incoming president attended. So Knowledge at Wharton's podcast, the pivot in entrepreneurship. Might be useful, might be interesting if you're not familiar at all with what I'm talking about. But Derek Thompson, at the time, was a writer for The Atlantic, I think. He wrote a book, at least one, about sticky marketing. He did a TED Talk, which is actually interesting. I read his book as well, but the TED Talk is fine. It's about 21 minutes, I think. Raymond Loewy, Maya. Raymond Loewy, that's Loewy. Actually, let me make sure that's true. I did just check it, but it's something I just don't feel right about that. Raymond Loewy. So Raymond Loewy was a famous designer of things. And if you, Loewy, is that what I said? Loewy, correct. All right. So if you can actually look for Raymond Loewy. You can search for it. He's got his own website. He's no longer around, but his estate, his fans, his many fans, Raymond Loewy, Loewy. So you can search for his name. There are many historical references. He had a few different design ideas that were very successful. Basically, the Maya principle, most advanced yet acceptable. And we'll get into that here because that's probably why you want to pivot, to follow that good advice. So we'll get into that a little bit. But Raymond Loewy, very interesting. The TED Talk is pretty good. The book is good too, but the TED Talk is quicker, I suppose. Depends on how fast you read. On that note, let us begin for real. The new ideas, they can be a challenge. If your entrepreneurial endeavor is a coffee shop or a retail storefront or offering some service around your expertise or experience, or maybe a science or tech undertaking, maybe you're going to be the next big Google whatever, one of the first things that should enter any discussions early on, maybe with yourself, maybe with co-founders, you should talk to yourself. It's the arguments are great. Is whether your customers, your users, your however you would characterize these people on which you will depend for survival, will your customers want, need, or even understand what you are attempting to deliver to them? What is this? The risks are many. My ears are not stuffed today, but it's like I sound weird to myself in my head. Still a little bit stuffed up. But something to ponder first, perhaps, is whether your concept is novel enough or too novel. Are you opening just another coffee shop, in which case you'll be just another coffee shop? Or are you opening a neon coffee shop with chemistry lab equipment and visible science to make sure it is anything but just another coffee shop? That might also be overwhelming and a bit too much than just another coffee shop. But a bit too much than just another. That doesn't sound grammatically good, but we'll let it go. This is where Raymond Loewy enters the picture, as you may learn about in that TED Talk, with the concept of Maya, most advanced yet acceptable. Put more usefully, perhaps, and this is from the video, and I don't know if this is an actual Raymond Loewy version of his design philosophy, but if you want to sell something familiar, make it surprising. And if you want to sell something surprising, make it familiar. The first mover advantage is something we always worry about. This is that idea. Who writes my notes for me? I'm going to fire him immediately. First mover advantage is the idea that suggests a truly novel idea that works, that connects with customers and really catches on, not catches in. That's it. I'm firing this person. Really catches on, will benefit that endeavor, which can accomplish this first. So first mover, I got here first. Here's my idea. Everybody will give you the credit. instant win. This is where true novelty, word of mouth, fear of missing out, and patents, especially those patents, can really come in handy if they align in your favor, if you are the first mover. Once your first moves result in success, there will undoubtedly be a move from others on you to take your dominant position. I wrote dominant, I promise. In a new market you may have established, features and price will be the early targets. And this is how markets work. So that's just the way it is. And there may be name recognition to contend with if a competitor emerges whom everybody already knows. I think famously, Microsoft used to do this. They would either acquire a company or just come out with a new product that did exactly the same thing, but give it for free as part of and that's antitrust lawsuits that have never really helped anybody in that space. I used to work at Netscape, Internet Explorer, antitrust, rigmarole. Long story. It didn't really impact me directly, but I'm not a Windows person. I digress. In order to maintain a competitive lead in your new marketplace that you may have established, you maybe have come out with something completely new. Your next steps will revolve around the specific attacks, if you will. Adjust your pricing, cost reduce your product or service to maintain margins, to fuel growth, of course, got to grow. Add differentiating features with new versions or new bundles if you're offering a service. So depending on what you're doing, you should adapt, and you should, well, first of all, the take home, if you need to adapt, if your competitors are coming out with these variants, price, features, shape, sizes, color, whatever it is, if those are actually impacting your sales, then you would have to do something about it. If it turns out that those things are not important, if they don't drive, if you can deliver on quality construction of your product, quality of the services, whatever it is, you may not have true competition. But you do have to keep an eye on your marketplace and understand the products you're delivering. So, and guess what? There may still be a pivot in your future. If nobody knows your name as well as the big competitor entering your market, pick a marketing strategy and double down. So it will depend significantly on what's going on, but you may need to do a little internal pivot. Pivot your a component of your strategy, a component of your product, or an element of your services, and so on. So let's go through my coffee example a little bit, because I have always thought this would be an interesting idea, and I actually will step aside a little bit. I've mentioned Cafe Free before. Cafe Free is a Hungarian coffee shop. It's a Hungarian company. It is not selling Hungarian coffee. It might be. But what they do is they prepare coffee in traditional ways. So they use traditionally prepared beans. They use traditional coffee preparation methods. And they used to have a coffee shop location in the Liffey Valley Mall in Dublin, Ireland. Not in Temple Bar, not at the airport, not where international travelers would properly appreciate this variety. I stumbled upon it one day. I was staying in a hotel. When I was working for Intel, I was staying at this hotel in the Liffey Valley, and I could catch a bus or coach directly to work. It was very convenient. So I, on the weekend, walked to the mall. It was maybe a mile. Walked to the mall to renew my bus pass at a news agent. Very convenient. I was wandering around the mall. It was April. So for some reason, it was very slow. It was a slow day on this weekend. I went up to the food court on the second floor, on the upper floor. Wandered in, see what's around. Cafe Free. Oh, what's this? It's got a map of the world and different types of coffees. I enjoyed what they called an Arabic. It was similar to a Turkish coffee. Maybe it's the same thing. We'll leave it at that. An Arabic coffee and a Nicaraguan tobacco coffee. Oh, that's unusual. I've never had that before. So you could get coffees prepared in traditional manners from all over the place, all over the globe, or wherever they had map markers on their wall. This was fascinating to me. Why are people not doing more interesting things than espresso drinks? Oh, okay, you can get a pour over now, or a drip, an iced nitro coffee. Okay, sure. But try out a Turkish coffee or an Arabic coffee if you like. Get some of those Nicaraguan tobacco beans, which Cafe Free does sell online in their online store. They do not ship from Hungary. So I can't get these beans. I could literally get them anytime. If somebody's in Hungary listening to this on the off chance, please purchase me some tobacco-infused Nicaraguan coffee beans. I'll give you my address. So I've always believed that there's room for unusual coffees. Not too crazy. I want to keep it familiar. Anyway, opening a coffee shop would offer no first mover advantage on its own. I am starting with something familiar. This is an example. I'm not opening a coffee shop anytime soon that I know of. I can make it surprising, as I suggested earlier, with everything I can think of thrown into my grand opening. Neon lighting. I'm only saying that as maybe it's not neon lighting, but make it flashy, make it visually stunning, make it distracting. Some funky seating, maybe big beanbag chairs or something. The fastest Wi-Fi, chemistry lab glassware for coffee preparations. That's really the crux of what I'm thinking about here. A real science scene with technical coffee details, and the same for teas. You want to know your total dissolved solids? Here's the number. Colorimetry values for your tea? Here it is. Colorimetry, by the way, you shine a light through the coffee and it tells you, I'm oversimplifying it, but it tells you what the color components are. So you should be able to deduce how much tea has dissolved in the water. Coffee, that's almost impossible to do because coffee is usually much darker. It's not impossible, almost impossible. But tea is usually not nearly so dark. So colorimetry values might be more useful, might be more interesting just to know those things. Some people might actually find it curious. While I have made my new coffee shop concept surprising in this example, I may have made it shocking. Neon lights, is that really useful? Do people want to know their TDS, total dissolved solids, and colorimetry values from the start? Or is that a bit over the top? Should I be serving beverages in beaker mugs with little flasks of powdered cocoa and sugar and glass stirring rods? Or am I showing all of my cards at once? Surprising is good. Shocking could be overwhelming. And from a practical sense, where do I go from here with all this in the all-in beginning? So if I've shown all my cards, what do I do 6 months from now when this is all old hat? In my case, I actually want to start with something surprising and make it familiar. The concept focuses on the science of our favorite daily beverages in what has become the modern day co-work studio. People come into your coffee shop to work on their laptops, hopefully not with their earbuds in all day. Hopefully there's a little bit of social time. That could be another element. Coffee chat. We can introduce our science in a familiar environment and not all at once. Here is where some pivots on pivots can work nicely, maintaining a familiar environment as we roll out a new surprise now and then. If they might fit in with this familiar environment, then great. Have we made our surprise familiar, or is it a familiar surprise? Maybe a little bit of both. Probably, if done correctly, it is kind of right in the middle. It is both a surprise of the familiar and a familiar surprise. A surprise wrapped in the familiar. Don't fall in love with your idea. Now, I could say, nope, I got to do the neon lights and the chemistry equipment. And then where would I be a month in when people are bored of all this or maybe overwhelmed or just, the coffee's not that good. Like, make sure your coffee's good if you're opening a new coffee shop. A story, and by the way, cafe free coffee was great. That location in the mall closed. It became a normal sandwich shop, coffee shop thing. So clearly they should have consulted me before, like, to open at the Dublin airport. The Dublin airport has a U.S. Customs pre-check facility. So you're going to get a lot of international travelers entering and exiting through Dublin. Why not expose them to the coffees of the world prepared properly? So yeah, don't fall in love with your idea. A story we heard during the America's Greatest Makers days, which I've talked about somewhere in some of my audio programs. When I was working for Intel, we made an actual reality show. Mark Burnett, the upcoming foreign envoy to the UK, if I recall correctly, as told by Mark Searle, then of Haas School of Business at Berkeley. This story addresses this concept well. I have retold it frequently, as I will now. They, the Haas School people, including Mark Searle, were having some sort of a presentation with an audience of entrepreneurs and spectators and whoever else. One of the former, an entrepreneur, this is a person that may have been in the audience, I think, thus they were not prepared. They didn't have a slide deck or demos or anything. I think it was just, hey, who's working on an idea? That's how I recall the story being told. That had a cost of something like $500,000 out of pocket to date to develop. It was a split keyboard. Now you're going to have to imagine with me at this point. It was a split keyboard. So one keyboard split into two halves that would hang around one's neck with a connecting strap or band of some kind, so that the keyboards were available, one for each hand, when lounging in front of a television or similar. I suppose you could use it when you're standing as well, but the keyboards would be resting on you if you were properly positioned on your lounge of choice. So the keyboards are available for each hand when lounging in front of the television to enable texting and other keyboarding while relaxing. So right away you should be thinking, why would somebody do that? Now this was 6 years ago or so. So we did have iPhones. We did have Android devices. We had smartphones. So something to think about. Based on this impromptu description, the audience responded. They put it out to the, so who here would find this exciting? A general lack of interest. Go figure. Our innovator had come up with an idea and pursued it because it made absolute sense to them. Love for the idea did not include sharing it with others along the way. Oh, this is my idea. I don't want someone to steal it. So all of those personal dollars, $500,000. Later, there was a project, not quite a product, that would have been an unlikely success story at best. Because it was familiar, yes, and a surprise, sure, but not what people wanted at all. The minimally viable product, or MVP, that can be shared with others comes into play here. And while I'm not a fan of the MVP as a universal milestone, too often it becomes the product, and then you kind of become settled on that product, and it can lead to things like, is this it? Or, oh, now we have to redesign the prize. So it's often made with shortcuts or corners cut. So I'm not always a fan of the MVP, but having an MVP of his, I think it was their split keyboard would have been an interesting example to show people. So MVP is not a universal milestone in every case, but in this case, I think starting out with some advanced prototype that did not cost, even a mock-up, not a real functioning keyboard, but hey, let me take this split keyboard, tie a rope to each end, or a string or a ribbon or something. Create the basic idea and then show it to friends, show it to colleagues, show it to potential users. Go to the library, actually go to a movie theater. No, don't go to a movie theater to do this, but go to a place or engage with a collection of people who you don't know, because you don't want people to be too nice. And I suffer from this occasionally, although less and less so as I experience more of the world. You don't want people to say, yeah, this is a cool idea, when what they really mean is, except I would never use it because it's kind of weird. So the minimally viable product wouldn't even have been necessary here. It would have been, and not even an advanced prototype. It really could have been just, as I said, literally a mock-up, a model. Probably could have cost like $50. So spend $50, go talk to 100 people. Like literally pick that number, 100 diverse people that are, and you can speak with them privately if possible. You can invite people for a little focus group of your own. Hey, I'm having a little product demo concept coffee meetup or something. Who knows? Or even better, you could organize in your startup scene, if there is such a thing, where people, and there is one here in Vegas, I don't know if it's still happening, like an inventor meetup. That would be a great forum to show off an idea and get some real feedback. This person could have done that and saved almost $500,000. So now I'm going to give some real Vegas examples. No, I'm not going to pick on the startups in our so-called startup scene. I would speak with them directly. If I were going to do that, I wouldn't just broadside them with what is actually, I was only kidding earlier. I tell people what I think. I tell like it is, because otherwise you'll get into this $500,000 split keyboard deal, right? So just tell people. Don't be nice. Be honest. I would speak with them directly, and I'm not. So I will, though, review a couple of student initiatives for which I was a judge on a panel of many judges as part of an entrepreneurialism class at UNLV, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. The judging was not part of their grades, though there were cash prizes, if I recall. The The instructor was pretty well off, probably still is. So we had it at his home, and dinner, and then presentations and judging and laughing and crying and counting money and so on. The instructor of the class and the host of this gathering wanted us to judge them as though we were in the real world of business and investment, and to be brutally honest either way, which I did. I will say, and I don't know if it was one of these examples I'm about to go into. There will be 3 examples I will mention briefly. At one point, one of the other judges leaned over and said, "That was kind of mean." And I said, "I'm being honest as we were told to do and as I am wont to do anyway." Because really, when you think about it, if you had had an opportunity to stop this person that spent $500,000 on a ridiculous keyboard, maybe you would have. Or maybe you would have said, "Oh, poor guy. Yeah, it's a great idea." Then who's the mean one? An environmental control system of sorts. That's maybe a little bit too generic. That would alter window treatment configuration, like controlling blinds or curtains, control lighting and perhaps scents and maybe music and other aspects of a space to alter sleep, whether an individual is suffering from sleep difficulties or, one of their more specific focus areas, adjusting a sleep schedule to a time zone change, jet lag. Now, at the time, I was traveling quite a bit for Intel, so this was a absolutely practical response. I suggested that their only initial market was hotels that catered to business travelers, placing their product in higher-end rooms as a premium amenity in partnership with the hotel chains. This was just surprising enough to be interesting, but did not substantially alter a familiar hotel room, and it would offer practical value to justify that premium amenity upcharge. So they would establish their brand and utility, and if it really caught on, they could grow from there. To offer it in any other way simply made no sense. Also, I suggested they rename their effort. They called it Morning Glory. Think of that as you will. An educational software company that would build a software platform to deliver content, including student skills assessments, interactive activities, and plain old curriculum presentations like digital textbooks. On top of all this, they wanted to create their own tablet for their software platform, making them a hardware company as well. I had consulted at Leapfrog, an educational toy company, which some time ago was acquired by VTech, and VTech might not still be in business. I worked at Apple, Palm, Philips, Netscape, and I did a summer project with the Level Playing Field Institute around digital curriculum development. If there are several things I've learned, it's that hardware is hard, so don't get in the hardware business if you don't have to. That software development has more perceived value on the deployed version of whatever you're building, than the hardware it's running on. And schools don't have a lot of money. The Level Playing Field Institute was focused on enabling inner city schools that typically didn't have the budget to compete, if you will, in the education landscape, thus Level Playing Field. It was a Mitch Kapor undertaking. Mitch Kapor, famously rich from developing Lotus 1-2-3, among other things. So I had all this background, relevant experience, and insights. I stared them in the eye and told them that they were not Apple, they were not Google, they were not Amazon. Do not compete in the hardware space. Build your stuff to run anywhere. Schools don't have the money to spend, nor do students, nor do their parents. And software is cheap by comparison. Build software, not hardware. Their software concept was, we call a learning management system now, or maybe a virtual learning environment, maybe a little bit of both. So they were going to be starting with something familiar. 7 years ago, around when we had this panel that I was a judge upon, is that true? I don't know. So I was a judge on a panel. It was maybe newly familiar, but it was not outlandish. So the notion of, because I had done something similar, a virtual learning environment for the Level Playing Field Institute. So virtual learning was not a brand new concept. So they were going to be starting with something familiar. They could bring surprise, but make it budget friendly. And maybe that would have been enough of a differentiator if they could make it budget friendly. And I did tell them about the Level Playing Field Institute. They could very easily have incorporated a teacher or a locally developed curriculum capabilities to make the product practical where there's no budget. We've often heard stories of teachers spending money out of pocket to provide educational materials for their classroom, especially when it comes to science kits or anything that has a tangible component, production by street. You may have to go and purchase some baking soda and vinegar to demonstrate how a volcano works, sort of. So yeah, enabling end user or end teacher contribution of curriculum items would have been a fine differentiator, for example. That would have been in the surprise category, correct? These were the early days of drone testing, with Nevada as one of the 6 FAA-approved test site areas back in the day. Test areas, there wasn't one single site. So Nevada, California, and Hawaii, I think, were joined, or Oregon and Hawaii or something like this. So 6 either individual states or teams of states. How it was silly. And it wasn't that long ago. I think it was in 2015, 2017, somewhere in there. So, wow, that means what I'm telling you is actually more than 7 years ago. Well, anyway, sometime in the past, all of this took place. There was some of the students had an idea to extend station keeping capabilities of various drone designs. Station keeping means being able to stay in an area for long periods of time. So if I want to take photos of traffic or spy on people, I want to be able to stay there longer. And drones that are battery powered, batteries run out. So they had station keeping technologies. A quadcopter or similar could stay in the area for photography or surveillance, as I've written here. So they wanted to get their idea off the ground, by starting a drone company and selling drones with their technology built in. My suggestion included securing patents for all of their ideas and not getting into the drone business. Again, this was whatever it was, 8 years ago, maybe. Jeez, time is flying. This was a weird time with many drone companies or attempted drone companies floating around. The test sites, different states were offering different flexibilities in how things were tested, and did they have to be in a contained test area when you were flying drones at certain altitudes, and couldn't fly over residential areas and so on. A lot of these things have gone away as safety and drone tracking have caught on, just like in New Jersey, for example. So it was a weird time, and the marketplace. This marketplace, the Maya concept doesn't really apply the same way, especially if we avoid making the drone buying public a customer. So instead of building drones and selling them to whoever, you can make the existing drone manufacturers your customers. And that's they love cutting edge, right? Those are differentiators. Instead, as I suggested, they should have considered licensing their technologies, patented, to other drone manufacturers, which would enable wider deployment across a variety of different drone types if their technology did apply broadly, and would bring them revenue without the risk. So they wouldn't have to actually enter the competitive drone marketplace. They would enter the licensed design to existing drone marketplace. If their technology did catch on, if it was provably successful and valued, they could consider coming out with their own products later, their own drones with the latest version of their technology built in. And here you can make all of your competitors your customers, which is one of those adages you pick up somewhere in your travels that does make a lot of sense. We're not doing as well as all of our customers who are buying our products and selling them also. Okay, that's not horrible. You would at that point have proven technology and a brand reputation. As known for their station keeping technology, here's our brand new Acme drone company. Can stay over your target for twice as long, or however you want to market it. So all they had to do is develop this without the risk. So that was my suggestion. So these were all sort of pivots, right? I have this idea, I've built my presentation around this idea, and now we're being judged. My feedback was, assuming they were really going to turn these into businesses, which I don't believe any of them did, here's what I would suggest. And these were all something of a pivot. The pivot doesn't have to always be in the product. Could be in the marketing, could be in the story, could be in the packaging, could be in how you bundle things together. There's a lot of opportunities for pivots. Ultimately, what I'm going to guess you want to accomplish is you want to be some sort of success. You want to be able to do this for a while, or sell it to someone else who wants to do it for a while, or who wants to shut it down, whatever the case. You'd like to not spend $500,000 and have nothing, for example. So go forth and be ready to pivot. I have suggested before that the value of a startup scene, One element of the value of a startup scene is the possibility of getting real, useful feedback from others who are almost certainly too busy working on their own ideas to present any real possibility of idea theft. This is something people worry about, often without much reason to worry about it, though it is not a never possibility. But if you're in a community, small c, I don't really care for that word. It's thrown around too easily. If you have a real startup scene, if you have an inventor meetup group, if you have an entrepreneur gathering, if you have a safe space, then you can discuss your ideas, hopefully with some trust or at least reduced paranoia, and you can get actual feedback. I was one judge on a panel in my examples, a panel of about a dozen. I think it was 10 or a dozen, I can't remember. But this was a sort of a feedback that can accumulate. So me and then maybe someone else another time in another setting would have some similar or completely different feedback. It can help to make better decisions, perhaps better pivots as needed. Falling in love with your idea too early may prevent you from making pivots that might make or break the future of that idea. If you can find some early testers, some early co-creators to bring some co-creation is a thing, by the way, look it up. To bring some practical impressions and honest feedback, you can step back from your love and make an honest assessment. Maybe take some of those other inputs as real pivot possibilities. Your idea may become more valuable as a result. Ultimately, your idea is yours. If you are convinced and you can get it out there, whether it's a coffee shop or the next unicorn tech company or whatever else, there will be an ultimate reckoning of sorts at some point, and you will find out. Final thought, speak with others who have attempted something similar. See what they would have to say about pivots and tuning an idea for success rather than ego. And that is where today's episode will end. I thank you for listening as always. 39 minutes, 40, just about 40, about 10 seconds away. I do truncate silence in case I've had to take any long pauses, etc. So it will be something under 40 minutes when all is said and done. I usually don't edit the show, so this is as recorded. Don't forget to check out my buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo profile page and the posts section to listen to the weekly Buy Me an Update micro episode. Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo as well. Go forth and be entrepreneurial. Do something innovative. Be creative, especially in these interesting times coming up. But either way, if you have an idea and you never pursue it, you will always wonder. If you have a split keyboard idea, let's talk first. On that note, Happy New Year. The next episode you hear of this audio program. Thank you, Alexa product. I don't know if you heard that. The next time you hear this audio program, it will be in the year 2025. Take care. Cheers.